In this video, we're going to be discussing how to qualify a customer. Before we get through the steps of how to qualify a customer, it's first important to understand what are some of the problems that we're seeing today in the customer qualification process. So some of these problems include 40% of salespeople today currently don't understand a buyer's pain. So think about this, 70% of people will buy to solve a problem and 30% will gain something. So how are you going to compel a customer to buy if they see no need to change? The second problem we're dealing with is that 60% of sales end up in no decision. Your greatest competition is not your immediate competitors, but doing nothing. Once you understand this key point, it will fundamentally change the way that you sell. We also know that 77% of sales managers do not trust the forecasts that are provided to them by their salespeople. And we also know that 35% of the value in the sales process actually comes from the salesperson, not from the products or services that they're selling. So why are these problems happening today? The first problem is that our products and services that we sell are increasingly becoming similar and commoditized. Therefore, how you sell is actually becoming more important than what you sell. The second point is that most salespeople today do not do the following. First off, they do not know what a qualified customer is. Second is they do not know how to properly qualify a customer. And the third part is they do not follow a repeatable sales qualification process. Now that we've discussed some of the key problems with customer qualification today, how do we actually qualify a client? So the first thing I like to do is to tell people to follow a process called selling to goals and gaps. In order to do that, there are 6 steps in the process. The first step is to start every meeting with a discussion and not a presentation. Diagnose before you prescribe. Think about it. How trusting would you be of a doctor who prescribed medicine to you for an ailment before diagnosing you for a problem? Then why is it as salespeople that we constantly do the same thing? 88% of buyers have indicated that they want a conversation, not a presentation. Yet most salespeople start with a pitch, which is the fastest way to get to a discussion about pricing. So use open-ended questions. The first example of a question is, before we begin, I would like to learn more about your goals, your needs, and where you need more help in your business. Ask intelligent questions because it will help generate credibility and trust within your sales process. The second step is to ask for and only important details that will help you qualify things that you are trying to sell to your clients. So ask some important details about their business, what they're selling, things that are pertinent to your business, such as who are your customers? Where do you sell to today, geographically, online, things of that nature? How are buying decisions made within your company and who makes them? Questions such as those. The third step is to identify their goals and write them down. Identify what is most important to them. So, for example, a question might be, if I were to come back here in 3 years and you had everything that you need, how would things be different than they are today? Paint the picture so they understand and you understand where it is exactly that they're trying to go with their business or organization. Number 4, identify their gaps and write them down. Important. Remember, how are you going to compel a client to want to change if they themselves do not fully understand their current environment and why they need to change? You have to help them understand why a change is needed. Remember, 70% of people will buy to solve a problem and 30% will buy to gain something. So the easiest way to ask questions such as those would be, for example, what are some of the key problems that you are dealing with today in your business? This is identifying problems. The second is to identify gains. What are some of the key things you need more of that you don't have today? So these are important questions to ask to help identify the gaps of your prospects. Number 5, identify their current environments and cost. So, for example, a question you might ask is, what are you currently doing or using today to help you address these problems and needs? If they have no spending today, ask them how they typically budget for purchases or if a budget even exists. If they do have spending, Ask them simple questions like, okay, well, what is that currently costing you today? And remember, a cost factor is not only what they're paying, but the opportunity cost of what they're not achieving as well. The other important part about this is to remember that the easiest way to find out a comfort zone of spending for your clients if a budget doesn't exist is if you determine what they're currently spending today, where their comfort zones are with their current spending. And number 6, use transitional trial and closing questions. So, the first question you can ask your client is, now that you have all the information you need, if you had mentioned that your goals were X, the goals might be anything that you've identified, growing clients, growing revenues, things of that nature. How are your current systems and processes currently supporting those goals? Now think about it. And when they start talking back to what we discussed here, if you understand what their goals are and their gaps are, remember you're trying to help them understand what they currently have today, where they want to go, and that gap, and ultimately to get them thinking about how your products and services can help close that gap. So that moves us into your trial closing question. Your trial closing question is, if I were to show you a better way to help you, and then repeat back their goals, increase their spending, hire more employees, things of that nature, would that be of interest to you? If they say yes, congratulations, you have a qualified customer and you can move forward in the next steps in your defined sales process. The most effective way to execute on this customer qualification process is to create a standard and repeatable system for each and every one of your customers in sales meetings and calls. I always recommend that a sales meeting guide be created so that you can best create the discipline and habits that are necessary to make sure that this happens every time in every sales process that you go through. A sales meeting guide is also helpful for boomerang sales in the future so that you can always have a quick snapshot of the key client information you need when they are finally able to buy. Because remember, 50% of leads that come through are qualified but might not be ready to buy in your time. So for example of sales meeting guides or downloads, please visit the tools section on the successfulsalesmanager.com.